They're over there, and so I think what we should do is introduce ourselves real quick, and then go into the history of what happened at the site, what we all did together, and be very specific about it, but then also try and draw some conclusions that could work in other places. So it's a case study, and it's not meant to be, you know, proscriptive for everybody, but hopefully there are some things that can be utilized elsewhere. So should we just start going around the introduce ourselves?
I'm Gloria Esposeth. I'm the pastor of Gethsemane Lutheran Church. We're up in Sera, Mesa, just out of the Qualcomm Stadium.
My name is Brenda Casey. I'm the director of the Sera Mesa Food Pantry and the missions chair at Mission Village Christian Fellowship.
I'm Carl Venus, and I'm president of the Sera Mesa Community Council. And we were looking for something to reach out into the community. So that was where we started from.
Bob Greenemeyer.
Bob Greenemeyer. I'm co-director of Victory Gardens San Diego.
Richard Winkler, co-director, Victory Gardens. Yael.
Hi, I'm Yael.
Minister of Education, Victory Gardens.
Garden educator.
So I think what you guys should do is just talk about the history, you know, like last couple of years. And while you do that, I'll pass these around. These are site studies that were done by the designers of the new school.
We might mention there are a couple of other partners too.
Yes,
be here.
sorry. Well, let's do it chronologically.
No,
Start
let's start with the food pantry, I think.
Yes.
Well, there's two churches side by side that share a big piece of land adjoining a canyon.
What happened a few years ago, we had a vision of a food pantry. And my church had some room. So what happened was, I'm the missions chair, so I decided to go to the Sera Mesa Community Council. Carl happens to be the president, and I said, I'd like to start a food pantry in the Sera Mesa area, but I want this to be a community food pantry, not a food pantry just by a church or two churches, because our two churches are side by side. We share even a parking lot. So Sera Mesa Council was totally on board. And at that point, we sort of launched, and we got some funds from the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program and some donations, and the two churches, we collaborated together, and we started a food pantry. From the beginning, I thought a food pantry and a garden went hand in hand. You could use the vegetables and the fruits to give to your clients at the food pantry. So that was the vision, and at that point I said to both Ron Roberts' office at the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program and the San Diego Food Bank, if you guys ever hear of anything about a garden, put us #1 on the list. We want to start a garden. And in the meantime, I had gone to my council and gotten permission to use the land, and I went to Pastor Gloria and I got permission to use, you know, sort of shared the vision with them, and they were totally on board because we've got quite a bit of co-joining land along a canyon rim, which is the Shawn Canyon. So that's sort of how it began, and then what happened was Lisa from the San Diego Food Bank called me, and she said there is a childhood obesity initiative, and we want to be part of it, and so we would like to help you guys get this garden going. So Lisa contacted Victory Gardens, and then the Sera Mesa Council, Victory Gardens, and Gethsemane, we all got together, and that's how we launched the community garden, which is now the Sera Mesa Community Garden and Orchard. Do you have anything to add?
I would just say that the two churches have had some unused land in the back of their property for 50 years, and the canyon has been really reclaimed through it being set aside as sheltered space. It can be developed. And then there's a group that works down there. I never thought of even using that land back there. It was just sort of back there, you know. And when this happened, when this got started, all of a sudden there was this synergy that really went. And it had to do, I think, with Lisa getting Victory Gardens into the mix. Victory Gardens brought the New School of Architecture to the table. They brought the Community Garden Network of San Diego to the table. The San Diego chapter of fruit growers. You just have to know that I'm not a gardener, and my whole intent with this whole thing was to learn nothing, so I couldn't answer any questions because I'm a North Dakota farm girl, and that's in my background. What I wanted to see was the community come together, and we honestly had no clue when we advertised the class whether anybody would come. I only had 2 people from my congregation that were interested. You had more, maybe 5. But we really had no idea. What happened was, out of the community came these incredible people, some of whom want to garden for themselves, some of whom have their whole yards turned over to gardens, but they're now interested in giving back to the community, and so they're interested in tending community plots to feed the food pantry. So, you know, there's no way to know. You know, like our case study is that we had 2 churches with unused land that just never even thought it was wasted space in the back, basically. We had a partner who had access to other resources, and then when we advertised, this article was in the Union Tribune, there were probably about a dozen people from the Sera, Mesa, Mission Valley community that just showed up, and they're, you know, we promised water out back, but we didn't put the water in right away. We really wanted to see, you know, would there be people who would be interested? And when these incredible people showed up from the community, then I coerced my husband to trench the line and get other people, and we did about, you know, brought the water out to the back. So it's right there now for the community garden. And we just completed the class last Saturday, and now it's ready to launch.
Right, so it's hot off the presses.
Just a couple of words about why you involve community. One of the things that we as a community were looking at were ways that we could outreach and bring something to the residents of our community. And what happened is that we found out, unfortunately, that there was a need for food. So as we started creating things, things started falling into place. And what we as a community offer, as our community organization offers, is a communication source. We are not only members who have meetings, we have boards, we have a newsletter that we can communicate with. We also have an email program through the community council that we can get the word out. So what we really are is kind of a communication source for that, to be able to involve and engage the community, and hopefully, you know, get more and more people involved. So that's really where we came into play, and it's always a good idea to try and involve the local organization if there is one. You know, so that's been very helpful, I think. And we could, of course, not done it without the partners that we have, but all together we became a team, and the synergy just kind of exploded. So great references.
So we got involved, Victory Gardens got involved in October of last year. We went to look at the site and decided it was very feasible to garden there. It's complete sun. It's about 20,000 square feet. And the kickoff was a meeting in January that was attended by about 18 people, including a reporter from the UT who wrote a story literally that night, which I think Carl engineered, which was really beneficial because it kind of put the word out to the community that this was happening. And that's one of our recommendations, is get publicity, because when it's in the paper, you kind of have to go forward. You've announced it, and you are publicly accountable. Let me interrupt and introduce Judy from the Community Garden Network, Judy Jacoby, who is our colleague on this whole project. So the first thing we did was to urge everybody at that meeting who wanted to take the course and start the garden to go look at other community gardens around town. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Just so people don't reinvent the wheel, so that they are aware of what's going on, and they can also look at other gardens and see what might work well and might not. The first place we sent people, literally back in October, was to the TLC, because it's also at a church, it's also on a canyon, so it seemed to be the perfect, analog for this site. So everybody saw this, right? This is the site that exists. You can pass that around. So we teamed up with Judy, and we also brought in. See if you can go to that.
It's reloading.
The designers from the New School of Architecture and Design, Leslie Ryan, and two of her students who did a pro bono design job. So they did all this documentation. So they basically did this before the first class. So all this stuff I'm going to show you here is stuff that they did, and we don't have the capability to do that. So it was very useful to have them. And then they were regularly presenting stuff for the class to look at and think about. They circulated, very early on, they circulated a set of kind of concept studies that were of community gardens all over the place as a way of, again, getting people to look outside the site and think about what was being done elsewhere. If we can't see it there, I can circulate this, because this is the outline of what we did. I'll circulate this. On the left is a sort of typical Victory Gardens course of how to grow food, starting with soil composting, ending up with picking and harvesting. But in parallel with that, we added this track of design with the designers from the New School, and this whole track of organization, which Judy helped with, which was basically to start talking to people in the class about, little by little, how you design, how you organize a community garden. So that's that. Any questions at this point? Anything
Got one back there.
Okay.
The curriculum for those classes, was available for the people to use?
Sort of. Parallel to this, Victory Gardens is creating 3 curriculum tracks for the county regional garden education centers, one for basic gardening, one for community gardening, one for school gardens. So those will be available and free and downloadable soon.
And where will they be available?
Several places, but Victory Gardens website.
And my website.
I have a quick question about the
Okay.
city ordinances about community gardens. Since you guys, the reason I'm asking is because I also have a very small church garden, but I haven't wanted to publicize it or advertise it because I don't know if it's really legal or not. I mean, I know they're working on changing the regulations so it's not so expensive and time consuming to get a permit. But as a church, do you need a permit or?
We have not gone for a permit. Oh, here, turn the camera on. Because this is fully within what a church might do with its ministry. And you don't have to go to the city and ask for permission when you want to do a youth group or a senior whatever lunch or whatever. The care of creation is part and parcel, in my opinion, of Christian theology. And so we're really approaching it from that point of view. We don't anticipate anybody objecting to this particular use of our property because it's on the back canyon rim. It's been unused for 50 years. It's a bunch of weeds, and so it's such an improvement to do this, and it fits into our overall mission in terms of including creation care. So we've not gone that route. One of the things that we're very comfortable with is letting it evolve. Gethsemane happens to be quite a small church, and I know it'll never happen if Gethsemane has to do it all by itself. I mean, it won't happen. So we're letting it evolve and seeing what the community members want to do with it. There are people in the community, from the community who are a part of this, who have experience with 501c3s, with nonprofits, and it could be that the Sera Mesa Community Garden and Orchard would at some point decide to incorporate and get their own 501c3, and then each of the churches would, make an agreement with them. But again, as long as it's not being done for profit, that would kind of be one of the criteria. We're not selling any of the produce, but it's, being turned back into the community. So that's how we're approaching it. Yeah, Judy.
I was just going to address the other side of it, the legal piece, what's going on right now. We really really close to, really quickly, I'll do it. We're really close to getting a new community garden ordinance, and it'll probably happen by the end of the summer. But and in that ordinance, it'll be legal to start a community garden. There will be a fee attached to it, and you will be just filling out an application. Right now, if you have a church garden, legally, if you do not have people from the community who don't belong to the church in it, it's completely legal.
Okay.
Legal.
Yeah.
It's completely legal. If you have people from the outside community, it may not be technically legal, but again, who's going to really stop you?
Well, that was my approach, because when you bring people in who are not members of the church, I think technically under the current regulations you do need a permit, which I didn't tell you guys intentionally, because what I really wanted to see was the city coming in and busting a church and people growing their own food, and that to me would have put the whole cause forward, years. But the rules are changing very rapidly. So go ahead.
I just want to say, none of us have mentioned anything about the ant orchard. One of the people that Victory Gardens brought to the table was the San Diego chapter of the California Rare Fruit Growers. And there's enough space there, and especially like along the canyon rim. So we had this vision for fruit trees. And fruit trees can be part of a garden, but we really want to accentuate that. So I threw out the idea about let's add an orchard, and people really like that. And what that has helped us do is really focus on the fruit growing part of that. So much so that we already have the donation of 12 15-gallon fruit trees, and somebody else said, oh, I want to donate this. But it was by adding, I think, that word orchard, and really knowing that part of the property has a little slope to it. Well, you're either going to have to terrace it or whatever. However, you could just plant fruit trees on it. It doesn't matter that it's a little slanted, So it's a perfect place. So the orchard will kind of be in the middle and maybe along the rim. And that part has helped expand the understanding of what we're going to do with it.
So go ahead.
I was just interested in the architects and...
I'll take you through all their designs.
Good.
This site had a couple of advantages over starting absolutely from scratch. There was land, there was a site, so